and welcome to this episode of International Security Journal Leaders in Security podcast series. I'm your host, Eve Goode, and I'm the digital content editor for International Security Journal. On today's episode, I'm joined by Grosvenor Technology's Bradley Cohen, UK Sales Manager, Barry Westgate, Regional Sales Manager, and Robert Taylor, Product Manager of Access Control. On this episode, we will discuss how integrating access control with complementary platforms such as video management and visitor management will allow organisations to unlock more valuable data, streamline operations, and strengthen security. Bradley, Barry, and Robert, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm doing really good.
Well, that's great. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you all on this instalment to discuss all things connected security. So, Bradley, would you like to just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at the company?
Certainly. So I'm Bradley Cohen. I'm the UK Sales Manager for Grosvenor Technology. I've been in post for about 10 years. So historically, my work has been around the northwest, Scotland, and the northeast. So I run projects from big universities through to hospitals and NHS estates, football stadia, utilities. So I've got a fair mix of different types of estates in varying sizes across all of our access products.
So my name is Robert Taylor. I've worked in the access control industry for 8 years now. I started with another company and I've been with Grosvenor for 2.5 years. I am the trainer for our access control section of the business, and I am the product manager for the access control section of our business as well.
So I'm Barry Westgate. I've been in the security industry for over 20 years. And like Robert, we started at a similar time, been at Grosvenor for about 2.5 years. And I am the regional sales manager. I look after so I'm an account manager basically for everybody that is based from Birmingham downwards in England.
Okay, so now that our listeners are a little bit more familiar with you, shall we just jump straight into the podcast? Okay, great. So firstly, I just wanted to start by asking, what does connected security mean and why is it different in comparison to traditional access control?
Historically, access control was a decision, a door decision. Now it's a data decision. So what I mean by that is, so when you're controlling doors, videos, lifts, visitors, BMS systems, they share context. So you go from chasing a single incident at the door to managing all of those devices in one place, be it on Viv. So the evolution of access control is basically breaking down the silos of CCTV, lifts, fire alarms, and connecting them together in, I suppose, what is a cohesive 360-degree management system. So that's been the big change in access over the last, well, I'd say probably since the pandemic, where unfortunately as a nation we are slow to pick up new technology in comparison to the US, parts of Europe, and EMA. We seem to be a little bit behind them, especially when it comes to integrating video and CCTV and access control together. But I think since the pandemic, that has accelerated the shift, especially when you've had less receptionists, less security guards. So organisations needed to know who was on site and where they were, which is when we started to see a slight incline in terms of being able to monitor other things through their access control system, apart from just doors.
That's a really interesting point. And following on from that, how does an integrated approach help move an organisation's security from being a reactive function to becoming a proactive, data-driven enabler?
It's actually more than just the integrated security, which become fairly commonplace now, whereby all the security disciplines, such as access control, CCTV, intruder, etc., work together. It's wider than that now. So for example, we integrate now with smart buildings providers, particularly in the large projects in central London, in the city. So when you start talking about smart buildings, it's much more than just the security aspect of it. So then you're also bringing in things like HVAC and lighting, occupancy. So you're talking about a holistic approach. Even things like, they've doubled up their telephony system, etc., etc. So what's the point of that? So basically, it's obviously a much more joined up approach. It saves time, energy, obviously money ultimately as well, because it's a lot more efficient. It's also quite important because it enables the building to be proactive rather than reactive. So you can literally have phasing so that you'll be able to preempt where people are going to be, because they're registered in a particular area, so therefore they know they're going to be going to another area. I think Robert's probably more on to how that works than I am. So I think, as I say, I think the security becoming part of just the wider smart building environment is probably the biggest step forward we've had in the last few years, certainly. Don't know if you had anything to add to that, Robert.
Access control used to kind of very much be about events and what happened and how you react to it. So someone's tried to get through a door and it's caused an alarm, or there's an evacuation needed. How do we respond to that? I've got a visitor coming in. When are they going to be here? Do I have to come through the building? Nowadays, because everything's all connected with integrations, you can have somebody turn up, send them an email before they even get there. Here's your QR code, come in, scan it here, sign in at the front desk using a iPad or tablet. It'll tell you which floor you need to go to, and it'll call the list for you. There's not necessarily the way it used to be, which is just someone comes in and someone meets them at reception, unlocks the door for them, takes them upstairs, and it's very, very reactive. Now you can plan ahead, which I don't think you used to always be able to do with access control. It was very much let's see who can get in the building and where they go, and if anything happens, we'll respond to that. Now it's we can control who comes in, when they come in, where they go, and what they do. So you can plan a safe environment for everybody now, whereas it was always very much a lot more reactive than it.
Smart buildings enable centralized control and energy savings. Integrations connect identity, access, and automation. So it allows role-based, predetermined access for staff and visitors. And it creates a proactive, data-driven model rather than a reactive one. So in the old world, someone tried to open a restricted door and we'd start investigating. Now systems share data, so the issue is prevented before it starts. So that's kind of where my thoughts were on that question.
Can you tell me about the positive impacts that businesses will notice after integrating systems, please?
I say we're thinking about businesses now where they're very much everything is a lot tighter. Office spaces aren't being used as much as they used to. Some people are, things like where they have to rent out a couple of floors of their building, whereas a decade ago that was full to the brim with all of their staff. And so what we have now is with an integration system is that you can have really, really great ease of use, because you can have one software that you've got someone comes in, they log into the computer, you've got one software and they can see the visitor management. They can see a CCTV. They can see who's trying to use the lists. It allows businesses to kind of be smarter, and rather than having security on one building, who's going to talk to security? We need to phone them up, all that kind of stuff. Integrations just make everything so much easier, so you can have one little hub in one area. So it means if you've got a site with multiple buildings, you can control everything from one place. And that's the best thing about integrations. It will reduce costs, so you don't need as many people on site. And I think it increases the kind of mental well-being of employees as well, because if you've got systems where they used to worry about how many people are going to be in the building, when are they going to be here, who's going to be in charge of it, where's the fire marshals today, everything with an integration can bind all that together, and they just know, okay, if something happens, then security are on it. They know where everybody is, what they're doing, where it's going, and it just means that it's a really great way of having a smooth transition with offices, particularly office spaces. Now, obviously, you've got like hotels, universities, hospitals. It just means that security is a lot better and a lot tighter because they've got more access to all their systems in one place. And it also means that they can, I don't want to say the word track, but they can see what's happening with different areas of the building so that it's just really good for audit trails. And so that's what I think. It's not necessarily tracking, but it does make things a lot easier when it comes to business because, you need less staff, you have to spend less money, and you can get more data by tracking with audit trails.
Well, after discussing business positive impacts, can you tell me about the time where integration improved the overall operational efficiency and lowered risk?
Yeah, following on from obviously some of the really good points that Robert made there, and when we work with major organisations, generally speaking, but one that comes to mind is we work with a major NHS trust, where very typically with the organisations of that nature, they have real disparate systems, so it's sort of grown organically over a period of time. And they might even have not only would they have different CCTV, and they would probably maybe have 2 or 3, in this case, different access control systems in different campuses around their estate. So we were able to bring that all together under one unified platform, where we were also integrating with the other disciplines like CCTV, as previously mentioned. I think one of the major benefits of that is that operationally, so our system has unlimited client portals. So that means that the users can log in to the system in multiple locations and have control over what they do in their particular area. So their sort of access to the system is limited to whatever just they need. So if they're in a parts office in a particular part of the NHS estate, then they'd be able to issue credentials and cards or tokens to the people just in their region, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to do much else. But it means that they've got autonomy, and it means that the system works much more smoothly, if you like. It's got control over their particular regions. Also, that particular trust, there's some real physical risk averters, if you like, which is we installed anti-ligature readers in some of their mental health wards. So literally the physical readers are you can't cause any self-harm. They're simply made for that environment. So it's actually, of course, on the hardware side as the software side. So yeah, and again, it's quite normal for us. Another one that springs to mind is the London Borough. So we work with local authorities, local government. Again, really disparate systems over. You can imagine they literally have hundreds of different sites, from libraries to the town hall, but also to small community centres and just little hubs, and sites, refuge sites, the whole kit and caboodle. And again, they often have really very what's called unjoined up disparate systems. So it makes a massive difference for them to have control over the whole estate, unified cars. Quite often the skill in this is the transition. So the transition between having all that separate technology to one. And one of the things that we're able to do is we can help them on that path by having, say, for example, readers, door readers, which are able to read multi-technologies. So they can still use their old credentials and their old tokens whilst phasing that over to much more secure, modern technology, mobile credentials, for example, OSDP controllers. So basically, we don't expect a massive estate like that might have 10,000 people with cards and credentials to do that overnight. So they're able to to phase that through to the point where eventually you get rid of all the old unsecure technologies and replace them with a secure technology. So that's one of the things that we certainly excel in.
Can you tell me about the process of integrating existing systems with Grosvenor Technology solutions?
Grosvenor's software is in essence it's a BMS, so it will do everything that a traditional access system can do. So it can obviously open and close doors, as you'd expect. You put your card against a reader, and it opens a door. Exciting stuff. But where it starts to add value, I suppose, is when if there's an incident at the door, you could plug in a camera. So we work with probably all the biggest CCTV manufacturers, the kind of things that our customers, integrators use. So your Hicks, your Dahuas, your Anwars, your Milestones, your Vigilons. So you can not only see events historically and event driven, but you can also monitor as you would in a CCTV NVR. So you can monitor a CCTV wall. You can also put in things like alarm panels. Again, you can control those objects within JC4. We've got lift integrations. We've got visitor management integrations. We work with BMS systems. We can use wireless locks. So what JC4, what our systems do is that integrates multiple parts of a building, and it can be seen through a single pane of glass.
So we're nearly at the end of this episode today, and I'm down to the final two questions. So I'm really interested in hearing your answers to the next question. So let's continue. How do you see the role of access control changing over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think historically access control has been the kind of dirty nephew of security, because if you look at CCTV, it looks good, it's aesthetic. You can do wonderful things. You can look at a fox 200 meters away in a field. It can tell you the stoop of a man when he's walking through an airport. You can see HD 4K imagery of the most incredible things. You can zoom in. It's sexy. CCTV is sexy. Same with, so that's always been there. You've got alarm systems that protect sites. They protect from burglary and theft, and kind of access has always been a little bit like, well, you get your white card out of your wallet and you put it against a black thing and it opens a door, a reader, and it's kind of. But actually, since the pandemic, and I think when there's been less staff, and actually companies want to know where those staff are, they want to be able to manage those staff. That access has started to come to its own. I think you'll see with Martin's Law changes in the way that the industry views access control, not only from a security perspective in terms of the technology in the card, but also from a movement of people perspective. So I think slowly access control is having its day in the sun, and it's becoming more relevant as it hasn't been over the past kind of 20 to 30 years. It was seen as we've got to have it, but it doesn't excite anybody. But I think what we're starting to see now is that access is becoming much more relevant in that holistic security environment.
Yeah, I agree with the stuff that Bradley's saying. I think that in terms of how the access control is going to change, I believe that people want things simpler for themselves. So they don't want that white card. They don't want a key fob. They want to be able to do everything off their mobile phone or their smart device or their tablet. So
Yeah.
That's going to be a really big positive going forward. We have it now, but it can be improved vastly. There are going to be companies that don't want to have access control servers in their buildings because it's curious. They want it all on the cloud. And then one of the biggest things that's coming out this year and the last year is that how you can integrate AI with access control. So how can you do it where you've got all these events happening and then you have an AI program and it'll be able to identify patterns like, oh, well, this person, usually they come door at 9 o'clock in the morning, but today they came in through a different door at 8:30. There'll be different ways that AI is integrated into access control that provides better security but better visibility to people. that are monitoring the system. That's definitely going to be a big one. And I just think that people also want, well, even smaller businesses now are looking for ways to become more secure. So it used to just be that you have a card and a reader, but they're going to be like, you know, I want some fingerprint readers. You know, there's a fingerprint reader on the nursery to my kids' school, preschool, because in terms of the way the world is right now, everyone wants to be extra secure. So I think that we're going to see that, you know, biometrics becomes easier for people to install, and you can have them in lots of different areas. And you can, even then, if you want to do that, with like face recognition, and you can just use your phone, you know, and take a scan of your own face, and you'll be able to unlock a door doing that instead. So I think that, yeah, mobile devices, AI, cloud, they're definitely going to be the way that access control moves towards those areas in the next few years.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we have an issue in this country at the moment where we have huge estates, really, really secure estates, still using really old technology. So really low frequency cards, really old kind of equipment in terms of access control, and there just isn't the money to upgrade those. But what mobile does, and stuff that Rob talks about, is it allows people to invest in their estate, make them more secure, which they're going to have to eventually, but yeah, at a slightly more competitive price. Because once you buy a mobile credential, that's it. You've got a slightly bigger capital outlay, but then that mobile credential is on that person's phone. You're not having to replace it. So yeah, I agree with what Rob said, but this country, we've got a long way to go, even to get past some of the really old technology, which is in lots of our estates already.
For my final question, I wanted to ask you all, what's next for Grosvenor Technologies? What should we all be expecting in the few years to come?
We focus on providing systems that scale and adapt. We want to be really flexible, because we tend to work in the enterprise space, which means they're large systems, obviously highly secure as well. We've seen all sorts of cyber attacks recently, you know, M&S, etc. Land Rover, Jaguar Land Rover recently, and it's caused massive disruption. So access control is part of that cybersecurity space, because you know, we are on networks, tend to be closed security networks, but they still need to be protected from cyber attacks. Obviously, people's credentials and information about them, what car they drive, is often in the access control element of the security. So again, we're forever making sure that we're on the cusp of on the forefront of most secure environments. I mean, there's still, it shocks me really, to be honest with you, Eve, how many systems are out there in quite secure environments that have technology which is on low frequency technology and old-fashioned key fobs and stuff and cards. I mean, you can literally take these cards down to your local Timpsons and they'll just clone them for you. They'll just clone it and you'll just be able to get into quite a secure environment. It's really quite shocking, really, to be honest with you. And you can go Google on the internet how to replicate these technologies, and so it is a little shocking. So obviously we're trying to take people on a journey away from that low level security and into encrypted cyber secure environment. And obviously the other thing is GDPR, to make sure that people's personal details aren't you know, got into the hands of the wrong sort of types, shall we say. And there's a lot of them out there. So yeah, and also, you know, for us, the other big thing is building new partnerships, because I mentioned about all these other companies, CCTV and etc. We don't make CCTV, we don't make intruder alarms, we don't make fire alarm systems, muster systems, that sort of stuff. So we really try to partner with those companies that do manufacture those. We've got a really close integration, and we work closely together with them. So yeah, I think that's the future. That's what we're looking to do.
I think we'll be will be driven by the market. The market is slow in this country, as I've said numerous times, but I think the next big step would be to see more mobile sites, so people using their mobile phones as credentials. I think you've seen, well, I've seen a big shift towards cloud applications, so controlling your access control through the cloud. I think we are seeing people wanting to integrate other parts of their security systems within either JC4 or another system, so something like a Milestone or something like that, so another single pane of glass. So I think we're starting to see that dripping down into our existing estate. So yeah, I would say mobile would be cloud, more integrations, and I think things like mobile applications as well, so people can do more stuff on the phone.
As I'm the product manager for access control, so I know where the company is going. I can't share too much at this moment, but I can say that we've got products that are coming out in 2026, which will be more suitable for the market that Bradley's talking about. We're not allowed to do any release information or stuff like that. But yeah, we're definitely focusing on where the market is going and what Bradley is saying, but we're trying to get a little bit ahead. I think when it comes to access control, we need to start looking at other countries. And for the most part at Grosvenor, we've just kind of always focused on the UK and what the other companies are doing in the UK. So we've kind of broadened our horizons where we're looking, and we're basing that from different parts of the world and seeing what we can do to bring stuff to the UK where we're going to be a little bit more at the forefront rather than reactive. So I can't say exactly what that is, but in the next few years, Grosvenor Technology is going to be making that next step into kind of the future of access control.
And that's where we used to be. So what Rob's explaining now is putting Grosvenor where we used to do as one of the oldest manufacturers of access control in the UK, as one of the earliest. Well, we were the first people to put access control onto your PC, the first Windows-based access control system, which is why when we first were established, we were in lots of big universities, big utility companies across special services, and parts of the big, really secure estates. And I think what we're trying to do in the next couple of years is, as Rob said, is get back to the company that we were in terms of leading the market and getting ahead of the curve, which is where we used to be when we first set up. So I absolutely echo Rob's thoughts there. That's where Grosvenor are going to be in the next couple of years. We're going to start leading the market.
Well, that was very interesting, and I really look forward to seeing all your latest innovations very soon. So that has brought us to the end of our podcast today. Thank you so much, Bradley, Barry, and Robert. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode of ISJ Leaders in Security podcast series. Thank you also to our listeners who have tuned into today's episode on all things connected security. I've been your host, Eve Goode, and please keep your eye and your ears out for our next episode coming very soon.